Good evening, everyone. My name is Jenny Prosser, and I'm the Vice President of the Social Committee here at Rancho Benicia. I welcome all of you this evening. First off, I'd like to thank the committee that worked so hard to put this evening on for this forum. And the committee would be Helen Carr, myself, Jackie Hay, Susan Bittner, who is the president of the committee, but she's on a plane to Denmark having a nice vacation. So she's not here. Ellen Blothard, Susan Street, and I'd like to thank all of you for attending. I've been a nervous mom, expecting my first grandchild, thinking, oh, is this going to be successful? But I think we have a good turnout here this evening. We handed out some cards and pencils that you could write a question on for the candidates, and there are two people, Pat and Kathy, who will collect them if your card has not been collected yet. Just raise your hand and they'll come by and pick it up. We'll be reading those shortly. I'd like to introduce at this time our candidates. Miss Carrie Birdseye. Mr. Oh, yep, stand up. There we go. Lionel Lagaspada.
Very good. Thank you.
Did I do okay?
Very good.
Terry Scott. Christina Strawbridge. And Billy Enos. Our moderator this evening will be Susan Street. I'd like to introduce now Louise Request. Lois, I'm sorry. I can't even read. And June Mejas. June is from the League of Women's Voters, and she will be the timekeeper.
No, Lois is.
Oh, Lois is the timekeeper. Okay. So you're going to be just the observer. You're going to make sure we watch our P's and Q's. Okay. The system that we're using is a system. The candidates will have 3 minutes to answer questions. And then at 30 seconds, we have the sign. Oh, there. They have a sign in the front that will be held up that say they have 30 seconds left. And then we have another sign that says, whoop, flip it the other way. Just flip it over. Stop is upside down. There you go. And it says stop, so that they know that their time is up. So I think at this time, Susan will take over for us.
Okay. I'd like to welcome everybody here. Thank you so much, Rancho Benicia, for doing me the honor of being the moderator. Everybody here is here to learn something and to hear what our candidates have to say. And we are all very interested in that. And I'm so happy to see so many people here. This is great. I also want to thank our committee, particularly Helen Carr, our fearless leader. She worked very hard to put this together. And so I personally want to thank her. Okay. You've met Lois Request, our timer, and Junie, our observer from the League of Women Voters. She's here to keep me on track. And because the League kind of has a format developed for a forum, we kind of followed that in many ways. And one of the things that they suggested is that we have one of those. So we thank June for coming here. I'm going to give you just an overview of what you get to hear tonight, not from the individuals, but how it's going to work. the candidates will have time for an opening statement, and then there will be 4 questions that the committee developed that we felt were of interest, we hope, to all of the residents of Benicia. Then we have passed out cards, as you saw, and you will all have a chance to write a question. We probably won't be able to get to all of them, but we have a group of people who are going to go through the cards and try and consolidate and figure out some 4 or 5 basic themes and try and get at those. Then we will have the candidates give a wrap-up of why in the world they want to do this. And then there will be a social hour, which we have cookies and coffee, and we'd hope that you'll stay because the candidates all said they would stay, and this would give you an opportunity to chat with the candidates and one-on-one, and it ought to be a very nice evening. So, without further ado, let's begin. We drew lots in the committee for the order of candidates' opening statements. You have 3 minutes each. And the first person that will start is Mr. Largaspada. 3 minutes, please.
Thank you, Susan, and thank you, Ginny. You are nervous, and I'm nervous. I've got butterflies as big as an eagle in my belly. This is our first candidates forum, so I want to
Excuse me, Lionel. Can everybody hear him? No.
I want to thank everyone for having us. It's good. It is great to be back at Rancho Solano. I was actually here 4 years ago. I think the table was over there. And over the past 4 years, it has been an honor and privilege to serve this community as your council member on your Benicia City Council. My first term on council has been focused mostly on delivering on the campaign promises I made when I was first a candidate. And in my humble opinion, I've done that. And allow me to elaborate. The residents asked for more road repair. And this council has done more to repair roads across town than the 2 councils before us. I have personally secured $2 million. The residents asked me to address the rising cost of water and sewer in this community. I initiated a 6-month moratorium to hold those costs for the 6 months. But beyond that, I worked with my peers, my colleagues on the council, and I can promise you, you will never see double-digit rate increases on sewer and water in Benicia for at least as long as I'm on the council. We all want public safety. We all want a safe and family-friendly community, and that has been my priority. I've always voted to support our firefighters and police officers to ensure that they have the training, the equipment, and whatever else they need to be safe and keep our community safe. And then on the financial side, our biggest vulnerability is on the unfunded pension side of things. As your council member, I initiated the development and funding for a trust fund. So we are now, for the first time in years, putting money aside in anticipation of what these obligations will be in the near future. At the moment, our pensions are funded about 70 to 75%. That's pretty good, and I'll take that number over most cities in California. But it's not just about my promises. The other thing I did promise was to make myself as accessible and as responsive to the voters and the residents as possible. That was a fast 3 minutes, thank you. When the voters called and said they were concerned about the conditions of the historic museum, I secured $200,000 for renovations and repairs. When people called and asked, why do we have to tolerate Paper Tiger and the Sundowner, I was there and passed an ordinance to address commercial blight. Great things are happening in Benicia. Momentum is on your side. And I believe we need a council that is going to continue to move this community forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Mr. Terry Scott.
Can you hear me? All right.
Just bring it closer to your mouth.
Okay, that's not on my time, right? Give me the go. Am I going? Yep. All right, so now I'm going to be moving very quickly. So thank you for making the forum tonight. Sincerely appreciate it. I thought the first thing to do is introduce myself. So I've been still married for 46 years. I'm the father of 3 boys and the doting grandfather of 1 granddaughter. I'm a businessman, I'm a philanthropist, and I'm a futurist. I'm also a senior dealing with aging process and ageism. So why am I running? The pivotal question everybody asks is, why am I running? I believe it's time for a change in Benicia. It's time to remember, how did we get here? And why are we forced to play some catch up in a number of areas? I'm running to bring common sense and problem solving, out of the box thinking, and new ways to look at our opportunities going forward. As a businessman, I have over 40 years of experience working for big companies, as building partnerships and understanding financial statements, which is important. As a philanthropist, I know the human costs and consequences of making decisions. As a futurist, I understand the opportunities that are ahead of us 10, 20, 30 years down the road, and hope to bring that to bear for Benicia. But what if? And what if, from a personal perspective for seniors, as a senior, I know we need more affordable single-floor housing, access to public transportation, enhanced handicap parking, safe ADA-compliant sidewalks, more walkable and soft recreational facilities, accessible parks and restrooms. I've lived through 5 election cycles here in Benicia. I've listened just like you. I've heard just like you. I've read just like you. I've voted just like you, and I have waited. And I've waited for that change. And 10 years, 5 years down the road, we are still talking about the same subjects that we have done over the last decade. So the status quo, from my perspective of business and being a futurist, is not a management strategist. It is not a management strategy. Your kids and your grandkids know me since I was Chief Creative Officer at Hasbro, understanding where we are and building toys and building games, which they played with, which you played with. I've managed a global staff of 700 people, understanding a budget and managing a budget of $1.7 million. As chair of the Arts and Culture Commission, you've seen a number of pieces that I've been involved in. Former executive director of the Benicia Community Foundation. Support measure R, the road tax. Support measure K, the urban growth boundary. Trying to bring this home. I believe in our sacred trust. It is a sacred trust to protect and deliver to my grandchildren and their grandchildren safe water and air. It's time for a change, and I support Benicians electing Benicians.
You made it. Okay, Christina Strawbridge.
Hello, everybody. I know a lot of you in the room through the years. I think this is my 4th or 5th time here at Rancho Benicia, and I really appreciate the opportunity. As Lionel says, it's really our first forum, our live forum, and it's really great to have that interaction with all of you. As most of you know, I have been around for a long time, 37 years. I've had 2 businesses on First Street. I currently have Christina S., and you all know Sally over there. Sally's my right-hand person, and we have weathered lots of issues: the recession, COVID, the heat last week, where nobody wants to buy a winter coat. So, you know, we've been flexible. I'm so proud of our city. I love Benicia. And I think it was asked, why are we running? I wasn't going to run after the 2020 mayoral race. I got pretty beat up. But I was really encouraged by folks that say, we need you. We need your common sense, your method of listening, and really doing your own homework. So I'm back in the game, and I'm happy to be here. And it's been, you know, a pretty good start. We got the signs up. Don't you love my signs? They're pretty cool. My poor husband, I think he killed himself trying to put those signs up. And he's limping around. He won't admit it, but it's you know, to say you want to run for office, it's much more than saying, you know, I want to be on the council. It's really wanting to serve your community. And as I say, I'm really proud of what we've been able to accomplish the last, for me, the last 4 years. This is my 9th year on the council. We've had, every possible hardship that we could have: droughts, earthquakes, a pandemic. And you know what? This city got through it. Many of you took advantage of our vaccination program that was offered to our seniors to start with, because a lot of you couldn't get your shots. And I'm really, really proud of that outreach that we did through the city. I'm very proud of our city manager, Eric Upson, and our staff. We have excellent staff, and we are making it happen. And so I want to be part of that run. So thank you again for having me, and look forward to your questions.
Mr. Billy Innes.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm William Innes, often called Billy. And since I'm something of an unknown entity, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. Better? Okay. I've lived in Benicia for 20 years and in downtown Benicia for the past 10 years. I find Benicia to be a wonderful place in which to raise a family and in which to live. My daughter Gloria, who's now 36, is a graduate of Benicia High School, where she received an excellent education. I'm a retired school teacher from the Vallejo Unified School District, where I taught for over 20 years. 2 of those years were spent in administration, where I oversaw a budget of Title I money that exceeded $1 million and led our campus's school site council. Along with my work as an elementary school, middle school educator, I've also done much work over the years for the Fellowship with Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm currently a volunteer FM radio host for Solano County's radio station, KZCT 89.5, also known as OzCat Radio. I have a long history of community and union work on behalf of students and educators. And I want to thank Rancho Benicia for hosting this evening's forum, along with all of you in attendance. And before I relinquish this microphone, I want to give thanks to Terry Scott for all the efforts you've done to make Benicia a much more beautiful place where to live through art. And especially a gigantic thank you, with much appreciation, to Carrie Birdseye for the courage, conviction, vigilance, and resolve that you've shown to help make Benicia a much safer place to live. Thank you all very much.
And last but not least, Ms. Carrie Birdseye.
Thank you very much. I didn't expect that. Thank you so much for hosting this, our first forum, our first live forum. It's so good to be in a room packed with people again. I want to thank Helen for the invitation, Susan for moderating this evening, Lois for timing. I was here 4 years ago, and I remember that forum very vividly. This is a kind, thoughtful, intelligent audience and community, and I take your needs and your ideas very seriously. So I'm going to take my 3 minutes talking about who I am and why I'm running and what my priorities will be. I've lived in Benicia for 22 years. I've raised 2 kids here. I was president of the Matthew Turner PTA when they were in elementary school. I was also president of their swim club. And then when the city asked me to serve, I started my city service as a Benicia Human Services Board member. And if you're not familiar with that board, that's the board that administers grants to nonprofits that serve our underserved community. And so I loved serving our community through that work. And I applied to be a planning commissioner. And I've been a planning commissioner for the last 7 years. And for the last 5 of those years, my fellow commissioners have elected me chair. So that has been such a rewarding, grateful time in my life. I learned so much about Benicia every time we have a hearing, every time I hear from the public. And, you know, COVID was hard, but what I saw was that it allowed people that didn't feel comfortable coming down to City Hall to call in and participate in the public hearing process. And to me, that is very, very important. So I take what I hear during public hearings very seriously, and I encourage everybody to use your voice to let us know what your priorities are, and I will continue that service as a city council member. In my last 30 seconds, I want to say that my priorities will be diversifying our tax base, bringing new jobs, new businesses to Benicia, ensuring access to clean air and clean water, and being your neighbor at City Hall. I will always be available to hear from you, and I want to learn from you tonight during the question and answer period, but also during our social period. Thank you.
Okay, next on the program, we're going to present 4 questions to the candidates. These questions have been created by the committee that first started to do this. It was very democratic. There were lots of questions thrown out, and we tried to make them as complete as we could. So we're going to start with Carrie Birdseye. And with the first question is, strength in numbers helps our efforts to aid in city projects and to promote our concerns. Please comment on a possible senior commission with representation from Senior Center, Rancho Benicia, Carquinez Village, Casa de Villarosa, and city and others.
Well, first of all, I think it's a great idea. I think seniors in our community, you make up over 20% of our population. You deserve a voice and you deserve a commission. However, the city is looking at downsizing the number of commissions and boards. And so while I think it's a great idea, I have an idea I'd like to share with you. And that's a hybrid model of a commission. And instead of staffing it with city staff, which is the reason why our city manager is downsizing the number of boards and commissions, have a city council person be on your commission so they can be your advocate and address your ideas, your concerns, and your needs. So I would love to be that person. And you can have up to 2 city council people on your commission. And I love the idea of combining all the different senior groups. I think it's a great idea, an important process. You can have up to 2 city council people on this commission, no more than that. If you get 3 of us, you'll be breaking the Brown Act. So I look forward to serving on that commission if we can do it, and I will help put that together.
Thank you. I forgot to say that this is a 2-minute or not a 3. I forgot to tell you that, Lois. I know. 2. Okay. My mistake. All right, Mr. Innes, would you like to answer the same question? I'd be happy to repeat it if you would like.
I know the question. Thank you.
Okay.
I think the senior commission is an excellent idea for the very reason you mentioned. Strength in numbers gets the job done. On the heels of some unwanted construction that went on in downtown Benicia, I heard many people come up to me and say, wow, I wish there was a commission that could oversee this, have input about this. So yeah, in spite of the vocal outrage for that project, they felt ignored. So I understand your want to feel as though your voices are heard. Strength in numbers is what we've seen gets the job done, as with the clean air in Vallejo, they were able to accomplish thwarting an unwanted cement factory. There's also a coalition, though it's not a commission, it is a coalition, called Venetians for Clean Elections, who would like to see a stop to Valero's $250,000 of dirty money to buy city council seats. So absolutely, I hope you're very successful in achieving this coalition. If it's not exactly the commission that you have in mind, absolutely you need to be a unified voice. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Scott?
Thank you. I love this question. I just can't understand why in 2022 we don't have a commission. When we start to look at the population of Benicia, it truly, when you look at 55 and up, it's almost 40% of our community. And so I look at it and say, why don't we have this? Why haven't we had a city representative, whether it's staff? I love your idea, by the way, as city council member, and I'd like to be there with you.
Okay.
But we have such issues as transportation, housing, hunger, utilities, all those things that we really need to understand of how to serve the needs of our senior community is baffling to me why we don't have this. In addition to that, we are still active at 55, 65, 75. We should have an outlet and an opportunity that we can partner with the community and be part of the community. And I think having a roundtable gives us or a commission gives us a seat at the table. And that table is important to be there. You know, as they say in Hamilton, I want to be in the room. I think this is where we have an opportunity to take that large population base that has a lot to offer the community and step up and provide that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Strawbridge?
Thank you. Thanks for the question. I have to agree with Carrie Birdseye on the reason why a commission probably is not possible at this time, because we are trying to downsize our commissions and our boards. The reason for this is how many boards and commissions we have. Some of them are very active, some of them are not. But all of you are welcome to apply to any of those commissions, and we need your voice on them, whether it's our Planning Commission, our Economic Development Board. There are a Sustainability Commission. I mean, there isn't a city around that has as many commissions and boards as we do. I do believe that a coalition of seniors is important. As a senior, I can say that we do need our voices heard, but I think we can be more effective than just being a commission or a board. It is important to attend city council meetings, to have a representative there from the senior coalition. And you already have the Carquinez Straits. We have a number of people that are active in that group. That's what my vision would be, is to get behind it and to get things done. A lot of times when you're on a board of commission, you're at the will of the council. You need to look at this for us. We need your advice on this. So it's important for you to have that voice on your own. Come to the council. We listen. Thanks.
Thank you. And Mr. Largaspada, would you like to bring up the rear on this one?
You betcha. So, you know, according to the latest census, 20% of our population is 65 or older. So absolutely, I am interested in learning more about this possible commission. Certainly interested in hearing about the issues. As a matter of fact, I have been interested in being of service to our seniors way before ever thinking of running for office. I was an early supporter of Carquinez Village. I met Judy and Lois back in 2016. Shortly thereafter, I remember brainstorming in your living room as we were trying to craft the brand and think about membership drives. As a council member, Casa Villarasa has called on me often, and I'm proud to say that I have been there every single time. And there are two moments in particular that stand out. December 2019, I got calls from the residents. They did not feel safe outside. Their intersection had awful sidewalks. There's that steep ramp going to St. Dominic's. People were stumbling. I made a call, had a meeting with our public works director, and thankfully had staff support. They've redesigned that intersection. They've rebuilt that, and now the residents of Casa have a better intersection which benefits the community. And the second is January 2021. California finally figured out who was going to get the Moderna vaccine. And the first group to get it were residents of, we're out down to 30, were residents of nursing homes and congregate living facilities. Well, the 80 residents of Casa do not fit that model. They are active, independent residents. But that wasn't good enough for me. So I contacted Supervisor Brown's office, who then put me in contact with County EMS. I connected County EMS to our housing authority, and at the end of the month, the residents of Casa got their vaccines. The point is this: I've been delivering results for all residents in town, and I will continue to do it again for the next 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the second question is, and I'm going to ask Mr. Scott to answer this first. Seniors volunteer, pay taxes, spend money downtown. Rancho Benicia also provides required low-income housing, and our grandchildren go to the schools. We feel left out from the transportation plan of the city. How would you help us get the bus stop returned and the little buses back to increase our transportation?
Well, there's no doubt that we seniors in Benicia pay it forward, giving our time, our energy, paying taxes, providing affordable housing. So let's talk specifically about the little buses. I spoke to a bunch of folks over at Soltrans and the city about this. It was a city responsibility when they merged into Soltrans. The little trams and the buses went away. So there is no opportunity for us to be really working on getting those buses back the way they previously were. However, we know that there's a number of programs available now from North Bay Transit, Faith in Action, with the Pride program, the subsidized Soul Trans, Lyft program, etc. But I have another idea. There's major parking issues in the downtown. Let's turn the Rubik's Cube slightly and say, employees are parking downtown. Let's get them off of First Street. Let's create a shuttle service, get them to parking lots off of the downtown, have that as a shuttle service that starts to rotate around the downtown and through the senior areas. Bring the seniors into the downtown area as well as the employees, open up the parking, and then that leads to a trolley. The trolley leads to expanding it to the commanding officer's quarters, down to the Benicia Art or Historical Museum. I better remember that. My wife is on the is on the board of directors there. And then look at an all-encompassing path to move forward. Just don't look at it as, how do we get the little buses? How do we get the little buses to move forward? Make it part of a bigger program with a longer-term solution.
Thank you. Ms. Strawbridge, would you like to go next?
Sure. It's funny that Mr. Scott brings up the trolleys and the shuttles. We've been talking about there for many years, much like what he had said before. A lot of things have been put on the back burner, but it would be a great way to connect all of our city, all of our retail locations to the downtown, to the Historical Museum, at the Camel Barn. So I would definitely want to look at that, as well as expanding taxi service that could connect to our ferry system. We need to really look comprehensively at transportation, and unfortunately, it says here we have a plan. I'm not aware of it. So this might be something that the senior coalition could start working on. It could be your first goal is to bring it to the city council, to the city manager, and saying, these are the things we really need. We need to be able to have access to the downtown. I was here, I think, in 2018 when I was running. It could have been 16. They're kind of blending together. But I remember when the little bus stop was out there, but it was on the wrong side of the street. You remember that? And I know that was brought up. It's like, well, why is it on the other side? We have to cross the street. And then they just solved that problem. They just took it away. So, we don't have the control we used to have for our bus service. We did merge with Soltran. So I think that these are very worthy ideas that could be brought forward. And I'd be your champion behind it. So thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Ennis.
Thank you. Well, this is a question that hits close to home. My fiance, Margaret, teaches voice and piano 6 days a week and rides the Solana Transit Yellow Line just about every day that she goes to work. And there's days that Margaret will text me telling me that she's the only passenger on the bus, or that there's at most a small handful. And we fear that this is going to disappear completely from the city as it's disappeared for you. Now, as Mr. Scott mentioned, Benicia does have a lift program, lift transportation program, in which we can pay $5 to move or to travel anywhere within the city limits of Benicia. And while this $5 rate is appreciated, it ends at 9 p.m. And one of my reasons for entering this race, and you'll find that on your ballot on the candidacy statement, is that I'd like to see this program extended to run till 2 a.m. for public safety. That's closing time. And I'd like to see it include outlying areas such as Glen Cove and the unincorporated area of Vallejo, the areas that border Benicia. And it would be great if the lift program for the senior citizens could go from $5 to $2.50, a special rate for senior citizens. I think that might solve the problem if we're not able to get the Soltrans bus back here. Okay, so thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Largaspada?
Thank you. So in addition to serving on the city council, I also serve on a variety or various county boards and commissions. One of those commissions is Soltrans. Soltrans is the JPA, the organization or the agency that is responsible for public transportation for the residents of Benicia and Vallejo. I'm the chairman of Soltrans, and I can guarantee to everyone in this room that access to affordable public transportation for our seniors, among other residents, is a top priority for the agency. As a matter of fact, Soltrans offers a variety of transportation programs for senior residents and those with medical issues as well. And most of these are a subsidized program. I encourage everyone afterwards to check out Solana Mobility, and there you will see that there are 6 to 7 programs that speak just to this problem. Nevertheless, I gave Helen a heads up, and I'm actively, after I saw this question, I was like, I gave Helen a heads up, and I'm actively working with Soltrans to set up outreach meetings in Benicia, starting with the senior center, so that we can explain these services, but more importantly, determine what the gaps in transportation are. As for the bus stop, it is my understanding that that route was rescheduled due to the lack of usage. I'm not saying no one used it. The takeaway is this. As your council member, I pledge to keep working with Soltrans as the chair, as well as Solano Transportation Authority, the much larger agency, to address our outstanding transportation needs. But there are options and alternatives available to everyone. Please check out Solano Mobility.
Thank you. And Ms. Birdseye?
Thank you. Well, I think it's a shame that you lost your bus stop and your little buses. And if I was on the board, I'd be fighting for that right now, in addition to all the other low-cost options that we have for our seniors. Yes, we have the $5 Ubers, and we have the go-go mobilities to go to medical appointments anywhere in Solano County. There are great options, but our board at Soltrans and our city council should be listening to what you guys need. And if a number of you say that this is a priority, then we have to fight to get your bus stop back on the right side of the street and get those little buses filled and bring it back. And even if it's for a pilot program to see how many people are going to ride it. You know, you just can't take something away that was loved and used and needed. So I've seen those little buses throughout our community, and they do go down First Street, and there are people on them. And why shouldn't it be these people on those buses? So I would fight for that. In the meantime, I am going to be writing about these mobility issues for seniors on my weekly email. I send an email out to 2,000 Venetians every Wednesday or Thursday. I'm sending it out tomorrow. And so I will provide links and phone numbers for resources on how to get around our community for seniors. So if you want to sign up for that, I have a clipboard in the back. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have question number 3. We'll start with Ms. Strawbridge. The question is, we are not far from Valero. How can the City Council increase our air quality in safety in the future?
Well, it should be our goal always, is to make sure that our air quality is breathable, that we can track what is being emitted from the refinery. We have an agreement with Valero on air monitors, on tracking, and have felt that we have built a very good relationship with them through our fire chief, Josh Chadwick. However, we found out in the spring that there was an emission that went for 15 years that we were not aware of. What the effects of that are and have been are serious. And so we need accountability from the refinery. It's very important for our population. Are we more apt to have asthma here, more apt to have cancer? We need some of those questions answered. So it is a long-term, very important that we continue to follow up with the refinery. It's important that we have a relationship with the refinery. We have to rebuild trust now that I feel like they have jeopardized that. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Innes.
Well, I've got to say, living in a town with an oil refinery was never part of the dream. Not as much as living around the corner from an ice cream store or a bookstore down the street. But I moved here knowing full well that there was an oil refinery. And in doing so, I trusted that it operated ethically, safely, and responsibly. And as we've seen many times over, that trust has been shattered and broken. So I think we are long overdue to have this Valero oil refinery monitored and regulated at the local city level. Valero rejects this. Valero seems to stack the deck with city council candidates who reject this. And if Valero has nothing to hide, and if they operate on the up and up, why would they reject this? So at the end of the day, I got to tell you, I would rather my daughter play soccer on a dirt lot than be in the emergency room because she played soccer on a well-manicured field bought and paid for by Valero's toxic money. And if Valero's PAC can't be trusted to run an honest, clean campaign, why would I or anyone else ever trust its reports regarding air quality, health, and safety? We need to monitor and regulate this at the local level. End of story. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Largaspada.
Thank you. So this is a very important question, given Valero's recent violations, as Councilmember Strawbridge pointed out. I will say that we do have local monitoring. And that monitor comes in the form of Mayor Steve Young. Mayor Young sits on the BACMed, or the Air Board, which I appreciate. He's actually the first Benicia representative, I think, in the history of that agency. He also meets with Valero on a monthly basis. And so we have representation. We have in-person vigilance. I think it's also important that the city stay close and remain active, and we will, with Valero and the Air Board, because we need to ensure that the refinery adheres to every state and federal regulation that's out there, and they will continue to evolve in the name of public health. At the moment, Benicia's air quality is actively and independently monitored by a variety of groups at various levels. There are monitors in the refinery that are observed on a daily basis by an alphabet soup of regulatory agencies. There is a fence line system around the refinery that at the moment is incomplete, but Valero will finish it now that technology is available to them. We are also rolling out, this council is also rolling out community monitors. The next monitor, once the city and the Air Board works out the agreement, will actually go across the street at the Benicia Fire Museum. And more importantly, we have portable monitors, so staff has the flexibility and the technology to examine air on demand. In addition to the monitors, we have a robust public notification service. There is more work to be done, but the council is active. They work with Valero, they work with the agencies to ensure that our air is as clean as it's supposed to be, because as I mentioned at the beginning, Public safety is my top priority, and that also extends to air. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Birdseye.
I'm going to go fast because I wrote this and I wrote it for 3 minutes. As I'm,
I apologize.
It's okay.
It's my fault.
Here.
As I mentioned in my introduction, this issue is and will continue to be one of my top priorities during the campaign and when I'm elected to be your council person. The immediate good news is that agreement that you just mentioned is already in place, and that air quality monitoring system will be put at the Fire Museum. It'll go live first quarter of next year. The Bay Area Air Quality Management Board is working on getting it installed right now. And while community-based air monitoring stations are important to our community, that isn't directly addressing your question on increasing air quality safety in the future. Knowing what's in your air, capturing the data on what's in your air that we're all breathing is the first step. We don't have that information at our fingertips right now. You can't manage what you don't measure. We need to know what's in our air right now. And the air monitoring systems that Lionel's talking about are in our fire chief's hand when there's a report of an air quality disturbance, or they're purple air monitors, which don't always monitor everything in the air. They monitor just particulate matter, not the toxic chemicals that are being spewed on our community. So I pledge to advocate for more monitoring equipment that's more effective and strategically placed in our community. It's most urgently needed right now at our school sites. This is a major priority of mine because for the last 17 years, Valero emitted thousands of pounds of toxic chemicals in our community without notifying state authorities. So Benicia is expected to get part of a fine that BACMED's going to fine the refinery, and I pledge that if I'm elected, that those fines will be put towards better air monitoring and also filtration systems. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Scott.
Wow, is it tough to be last on this question? Wow. And you've heard just about everything that I too was going for 3 minutes. So great question. I think we all expect a number of basic quality of life issues, including water, air, and safe water. It takes oversight and mutual efforts and relationships to protect our air and water safety. The first step is to continue to increase monitoring around town and strategically place monitoring near senior communities, schools, and parks. We have read that the Bay Area Quality Management District has said that they being Valero, have released emissions for the last 16 years. While they've managed to reduce their emissions, they still are emitting, and we have to continue to monitor them. So it becomes one of monitoring, trust with verification, and building a strong, accountable relationship with Valero. After all, they are a significant taxpayer, etc. As you said, Lionel, Steve Young has made a significant difference since he has taken over the mayoral position in 2020. He has thawed the relationship. He has built a respect between the council and Valero. They are actively discussing this. These are incidents. We get the information earlier. We have an open line of communication. As candidate Birdseye said, when they do release the fine, BACMED releases the amount of fine. That part of that fine we are hoping would come to the city of Benicia. As they do, if it does come to the city of Benicia, I believe that as a city council member, the majority of that fine should come to the citizens for air filtration systems and for ways that we can provide more monitoring for each of our individual residents. Tough being last on that one.
Thank you very much. Final question. Mr. Largaspada, you may start with this one.
Very good.
How can we be assured that we have a fair election when outside PACs have not stopped spending money to influence our election?
In the United States, there is nothing more important than a free and fair election. It has guaranteed our democracy for generations. It survived January 6th. There is too much money in politics, and negative advertising is despicable. And there's certainly no place for that in Benicia, our community. And I will tell you, Valero knows that for me, because I let them know what I thought about their attacks on Carrie Birdseye in the middle of the 2018 campaign. I remember it because it was a Saturday night, I think October 12th or 18, and this all went down around 9 o'clock. And I also reached out to Ms. Birdseye to let her know how hurt I was, but more importantly, how much I respected her for her running in as a candidate. And I think anyone who runs should be treated with respect. A disclaimer. Contrary to the claims of a few people, I have not, nor have I ever been involved in a Valero political campaign, nor have I ever taken a dollar from them. It is all public information. And I will also tell you that in advance of this campaign, I have reiterated my request to Valero that essentially they knock it off, that they put the petty negative politics aside. Their participation only further divides this community. I'm going to run a clean campaign. All my information is available online. It's easy to get to. But the answer to the question, our greatest firewall against the threats to our election are you, the Benitian voters. As a community, we are very active, engaged, and informed. And our voters, regardless of who's messing it up, do their research, make up their minds, and ultimately make the right decision on Election Day.
Thank you. Turn the page too fast. Ms. Birdseye, would you like to answer that question next, please?
So the question is, how can we be assured that we have a fair election when outside PACs continue to spend money on our elections? I'm not sure there's a certain assurance on this issue, but I do know two priorities that could make it harder and less attractive for big corporations and state building trades to jump into our city elections. All candidates must say no thank you to mailers, whether they're negative or positive. You need to level the playing field. When you have outside money sending a flyer with your picture and Christina's picture on it that says, everything great about you, and it's glossy, and they do it over and over again. That's positive campaigning, but that's also big corporations from outside our community influencing our elections with their money. All of us have committed to a cap of spending less than $42,000 apiece. No one can compete with $250,000 from outside entities. So the two things that you do is, like Mr. Lagaspada said, vote for the best candidate, make sure that your friends and family vote for the best candidate, and we need to reverse the Citizens United decision at the Supreme Court. And that means voting for the right people at the state and federal level as well. It isn't fair, but in order to ensure that that happens, we need new congressional and state leaders too. And I pledge to shine light on this every time I see it. And if you get a poll call, please report it to my campaign website, because they're already calling on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And next, Mr. Innes, please.
Back in the 1960s, though I was a wee lad then, there was a bumper sticker that read, "What if they gave a war and nobody came?" Well, let's jettison ahead a few decades. What if the Texas-based oil refinery Valero started a PAC but had no willing candidates, or no candidates that met its criteria to spend money? Then wouldn't it be a different story? Would we even be here talking about this right now? I would not take a dime of Valero's money. I doubt they would offer it to me. And I have no doubt that I'm not the only one before you who'd take a pledge to not taking a dime. Unfortunately, you need the refusal of all 5 candidates to make this a reality. And in this modern age, political action committees are considered free speech. And I come from a time when this practice was not called free speech. It was called graft. It was called bribery. It was called corruption. And legal or not, it is unethical. It is amoral. And that is all I have to say about this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Scott.
Unfortunately, we can't stop outside influence. While it's legal, I believe it's immoral. It's up to you, the voters, to really make a decision, to do your homework on each candidate, continue to insist that we run clean elections, to review each brochure, to listen to who is speaking. To do this, it's everybody in this room. This is how we can keep a clean election. I will listen. I will be honest. I will not accept any PAC money. People are walking doors. I have knocked on over 2,000 doors and had a lot of doors shut in my face. But the point being is that we need to get out and we need to talk and we need to get our platforms out. But unfortunately, we all know that Valero and its PAC, Working Families, has basically unlimited resources to spend. Because of that Supreme Court, as we heard, Valero and its PAC can spend as much money as they want against our 34,000 that we can raise. To that I say, several of us have asked the PAC to adhere to limit individual donations to $640 per candidate. Stop the PAC's massive spend on mailer, ads, phone calls, and polling. Sign our voluntary code of fair campaign practices. And clearly and prominently let the public know that Valero is the main PAC funder. The PAC answered all of this by spending $250,000 to defeat candidate Birdseye in 2018. And in the last election, they spent another $250,000. We have all signed the pledge. We have all campaigned, I have pledged to have an ethical campaign. But we need you to do your homework, and we need you to say, Benicia should be electing Benicians. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Drubbage.
Thank you. Thanks for the question. Again, as stated multiple times, I am against Valero's using their PAC of $250,000 to interfere with Benicia's elections. And I take exception to candidate Innes on his statement that I take money from Valero. I've never taken any money from Valero, never taken a penny, and I want that to be clear. I have also learned that you don't have to spend large sums of money to smear a person and their integrity. This is being done through letters to the editor and social media. In November 2018, shortly after the election, my opponent said these election results will only embolden special interests to throw in money to local races to buy candidates to do their dirty work. On August 26, 2020, a former city council member said that I was illegitimate in the election. A person of activism in the community said that I had alternative reasons for being on the city council. Andre Soto, sorry he's not here tonight, but he has a weekly radio show that pretty much said that my husband bought and paid for me to be on the council. William Innes, candidate next to me, compared me to a whore and offered a story about Winston Churchill and offering money that he made very clear what his message was. Today on social media, one of the supporters of my opponents said that, we're in the pocket of Valero for $300,000. Don't be fooled. This is wrong. This is wrong, and the other the candidates need to call on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we've called down, we have enough time for each candidate to speak for 2 minutes on these questions, and then we'll have your final statements. The audience cards are in an order that are unplanned. This is the first one. The cost of needed water and wastewater system capital improvements over the next 10 years are said to be over $200 million. Another $200 million is needed for other capital improvements. How will you finance these if you were on the council? Mr. Innes, would you please go first on that
Could
question?
you repeat the question one more time?
Sure. I'll try and read it a little more smoothly this time. The cost of needed water and wastewater system capital improvements over the next 10 years are said to be over $200 million. Another $200 million is needed for other capital improvements. How will you finance these if you are on the council?
I'm not qualified to answer that right now. Thank you.
Okay. The next person would be Mr. Largaspada.
Thank you. So these capital projects, this list is real, but it's not going to be done in short order. These are improvements that are made over a generation. The way we get to these improvements is a couple ways. It's investing in people. This council has invested in top quality licensed engineers in our public works department. We are paying them well. And in conversations we've had with the city manager is the department heads will spend more time than they have, again, in a generation on grant writing. There is money out there that is available to communities such as Benicia. And so you can expect the staff that works for us to spend more time on grants. The second thing is, and it's along the financing side, is the state also has what they call an infrastructure bank. These are essentially low interest loans. And it is something I've been kind of picking at for years. As our capital needs grow, you can expect that PIC to be converted to a request. And I think those are the two ways that we will finance these improvements. It's going to happen over a generation, but short to middle term, we can continue to invest in staff. They will work on grants, and we will also seek low interest loans from the State Infrastructure Bank.
Thank you. Ms. Drawbridge.
Yeah, thanks. Being on the council, you have to make some tough decisions. In 2016, I voted for the first rate increase at that time. Unfortunately, it was mishandled from the standpoint we lost our city manager, our public works director, our assistant city manager, our finance director, and that is a big issue within our city, is keeping really good people on board. We have a really good staff right now. We just had a report on our water and infrastructure moving forward the next 30 years. And indeed, it's a big price tag. But that's why we've implemented these rate increases to help pay for those things. We are also looking at innovation. We're looking at ways that maybe a reuse project down the way. The governor has looked at Pittsburgh as a desalinization. We position ourselves really well here with Vallejo, sharing costs maybe with Martinez. So we need to think outside the box. Measure R is very important for us to do our roads. And I don't know if anybody's going to ask that question. But unless we get that passed, there will be no money. It needs $60 million to do our roads, and we have to pass that. And what that means is, my husband gave me some change to show you, it's less than a penny on the dollar. So think about that, less than a penny on the dollar. And it's all collected through sales tax on goods, restaurants, furniture, things like that. It's not going to tax your food at the grocery on certain items that are necessary. So we have to face these issues, and it's oftentimes a hard decision, but we have to if we are going to move forward as a community. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Scott.
Took us decades to get into this problem, and as Councilmember Largaspada said, it's going to take us decades to get out of this problem. Last night I sat in a meeting and I heard the city manager say, we're going to have to take a bite out of the elephant every time we can. And the elephant is the water improvement, all of the capital improvements. Things are going to have to be postponed. However, we have opportunities to look at Measure R. Thank you, Councilmember Strawbridge, for talking about Measure R. Measure R frees up a lot of money that would be sitting in our roads budget that could come out and help with infrastructure. In addition to that, one big part of the capital improvements is the new water line coming down from Cordelia into the city of Benicia. We need to talk to Valero and say, look, at 60% of that raw water is coming into you. You cannot do your business without our water and that pipeline. So let's see if we can get Valero to pay 60%. That whacks an incredible amount of money off of the capital improvements. In addition to that, talking about Valero, there's a certain sense of fairness that we need to all play by. They're paying $1 million for raw water. Let that number sink in. $1 million, 60% of our raw water. We need to come to them and we need to say, let's move that up to $2 million, $3 million, maybe even $4 million. Make it more equitable and fair for all the residents. That brings more money into the infrastructure budget. That gets us the opportunity to potentially hold rates. It gives us the opportunity to rebuild our infrastructure as a secondary plan, along with Measure R as a primary plan to fix our roads.
Thank you. And Ms. Birdseye.
Thank you, Susan. So I agree with everything that candidate Scott just said. In addition to that, the federal government just passed the Inflation Reduction Act. And so much of that money is intended for local jurisdictions to improve their infrastructure. And we need, as a community, to be ready to jump at those funds. We can't do it alone. We can't, tax our way out of this mess or increase rates out of this mess. We do not want to become the next Flint, Michigan, or the next Newark, New Jersey, or the next Mississippi, Jackson, Mississippi, that has to get their water in jugs. So it is imperative that we keep our infrastructure safe and deliver a healthy drinking water. And Benicia can't do it alone. I like what Council Member Strawbridge said about, pooling our resources with local jurisdictions, looking at a desal project. But we're not going to be able to do it alone and on the backs of ratepayers. I also want to say that I full-heartedly support Measure R. We need that money that we're spending on roads to go into our general fund and work to provide a stronger infrastructure and City Hall employees. I hope someone has asked the question about Measure R to all of our candidates, because I don't know if all of our candidates support this small tax increase. Thank you.
Thank you. Question number 2. Strangely enough, it says, answer yes or no. Do you favor or oppose the proposed sales tax increase, which is Measure R? That won't take 2 minutes, but you can talk about it if you want. Oh, you want to know who goes? First person will be, I don't know. Hang on. I don't know who's next. It will be Mr. Let me see, Birdseye. Ms. Birdseye.
I support it, and for all the reasons that I just stated, and I look forward to everybody else's answers.
Ms. Strawbridge.
Yeah, sure. It's really important that you all become knowledgeable about what this means. And there's been a lot of discussion out there as to, can we trust the council? Well, in Measure C, which was a sales tax that was initiated in 2014 and passed in 2015, was a quality of life measure. We promised, and we fulfilled that promise for where that money went. And it's really interesting if you want to look at the pie chart It's 40-some million dollars that we've collected in Measure C. We have spent nearly 15 million, 14.9 for roads, but it's not enough. We've been able to help our police and fire become better safety partners. We've also built new playground equipment for our kids. So by passing Measure R, it's going to take that money and put it towards roads. And as somebody said, it will free up other money that we need to use for infrastructure. We have an amazing clock tower that many of you have used that it's still got fence around it. It's still not earthquake sound. We have the depot down at the end of First Street that I've been very involved with through the years. It's on the historic register, the National Register. We need to be able to invest in these properties that we have. And the only way we're going to do that is freeing up some of this money from Measure C. So yes, I'm for it. Go to my website, look at the PowerPoint. It's very, very important that this gets passed. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Scott?
As I've noted, yes, I support it. I think it's a unique opportunity for us to repair our roads, move forward. It increases property value. If you've walked down a street, some of the streets in Benicia that are near gravel, and just imagine what the house value will be like if they have a proper road. We need to get this done. We need to get the money freed up so that we can use those extra dollars, or those dollars that are in Measure C, allocated to other projects. So yes, I support it. However, here's the but. But we also need to understand that there needs to be a citizens advisory board or a committee or something that is going to allow the citizens of the community to have oversight, to understand where are those dollars being spent. So it's an unequivocal yes with a small ... but we need to also have people looking at it and ensuring that those dollars are allocated directly to roads.
Thank you. Mr. Lurgaspada?
Thank you. So I am a hard no pass on Measure R. What I will agree with my good friend, Council Member Strawbridge, is that I encourage everyone, study this closely, ask good questions. And there are 4 reasons to say no on R. First is the timing. There's never a good time to pass a tax, but we have rising grocery costs, everything is going up. So raising taxes somewhere between inflation and a pending recession, I think it was an economist call it, as a turd sandwich. It's terrible timing. The second thing is, why have we given up on economic development? If you look at the staff reports that come with those slides, our revenue is actually going to increase 12% over the next 4 to 5 years. So we're making money. What is also going up are the expenses. So as the revenue goes up, our expenses are going to exceed that by $1.2 million over that 4 or 5 year stretch. You're telling me the city can't save $200,000 to $300,000, $400,000 a year? Of course they can. The third reason is this council, the next council, the staff cannot make any promises with where that money is going to go. It is going to go into the general fund. It is Measure C 2.0. It is not going to go towards water, because water is paid for by the ratepayers. And then the last reason, and the most important reason, is the message, the promise of Measure R is money for roads. The staff report indicates they can only do $5 million worth of roads a year. That's the max capacity. There is $5 million in our budget this year, next year, and so forth. Why are we raising taxes? We already paid 2 gas taxes, which nets us about $1.4 to $1.7 million a year. We can easily get somewhere between $600,000 to $1 million from the money we collect from Republic. That's right, we forget about that money. And then Measure C is going to go probably from like 6 and change to $7 million. Give me $2.5 million from there. I don't know if my math adds up, but that's $5 million.
Thank you, Mr. Lurgaspada.
That's why I am no on R.
Thank you. Mr. Innes?
I'm ambivalent on the measure, and I'll tell you why. First, yes, the work needs to be done. That is not in question. My fear is that it will hurt some of the businesses. For instance, if I were to go buy a high ticket price item, I might be inclined to go to Vallejo or Fairfield rather than go to Ace Pedrati. So in that manner, it seems a little counterproductive. As far as the oversight goes, I trust the council is going to do the right thing with the money. That part's not in question. In the end, I'm going to respect the will of the voters. It's a 2/3 decision. It's what's needed for it to pass. And so I'm absolutely going to go with whatever way the voters decide on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Now I'm not kidding. You really do have 3 minutes for this last one. These are your final statements. We'd like to hear from you for 3 minutes, starting with Ms. Strawbridge.
Thank you. Again, thanks for all of you showing up on a Wednesday night. What a cool place to spend your night, huh? No, I'm very happy to be here. As I said, I love this town. I have a passion for it. I've shown that through the years, helping to start the farmers market back in '92. I have worked on many projects through the years. I actually put on the Millennium Celebration back in 2000. How about that? So it's exciting to see where our city is going. If you look downtown, it's completely occupied. That is a goal that we have been working on for many, many years. So we are attracting businesses, young entrepreneurs that are buying the buildings, investing in their businesses with great success. That shows the health of this community. Also in the industrial park, we are attracting some amazing new businesses. I just found out about an aeronautic business that's out there. It's a multi-billion-dollar operation, and they chose Benicia to open their office. So all of this talk about, oh man, we're in bad shape. We're not. We are in good shape. And I want to see projects completed. I want to see that agreement with Amports finally finalized. I want to see what's going to happen at the Cino that we've all feared for many years. We may take a look at that. We have a subcommittee working on it. So there are a lot of things that are very important. I do want to correct Mr. Scott. There is an oversight committee that will be looking at Measure R, and that is the Economic Development Board with the help of our treasurer. So that's already there, and it's also not a 2/3 vote, it's 50+1. So again, do your homework on these things, and it's important to go to the city website. It's not the best website in the world, but it's got a wealth of information. And as I say, I can tell you, we have the amazing staff, and we have to keep those staff members in place. That is going to be our future. And I just want to end with, we were out walking yesterday, and a mom came up to our car, which has the Christina Strawbridge on the side, and she was showing her little boy about what elections are about. And she said to him, this is what's important, especially in our town, about being able to vote and people going out and campaigning. That is so Benicia. And so I'm so excited about, again, being your council member the next 4 years. Thank you.
And Mr. Largaspada.
Thank you. So at the beginning, Susan asked why we're doing this, why we're running. And friends, my answer is I love serving the great community of Benicia. It has been an honor and privilege to represent you over the past 4 years. And over those 4 years, I've done my best to be an independent, common sense voice on the council, listening to every resident who's come to me. Doesn't matter if it's Rayleigh's, my phone, or email, and always voting to improve the quality of life in town. During my first term, as I said in the beginning, I have pushed for responsible fiscal policies. I've secured more funds for roads, public art, city grants, the Historical Museum, the Family Resource Center. During COVID, I initiated a grant program for our businesses while also protecting open space and maintaining our parks and library services. Great things are happening in Benicia, and momentum is on the side of the residents. And I encourage you all to think about that. Think about where we're at and where we're going to go. And we need a council that is going to continue to move forward, that is going to continue to deliver with leadership, knowledge, and experience. And I want to thank every resident who has reached out to me to tell me what matters. What are the priorities in town? Because I have learned over the past 4 years what is important and how to get things done. And I've gotten things done. And if you want results on the council, then I humbly ask for your vote on election day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Birdseye.
Thank you, Susan. Well, thank you all for being here this evening. This has been a pleasure, and I want to thank my fellow candidates. This is going to be a fun election season. So, I'm not a politician. I believe strongly in community service. I've led our planning commission the last 5 years, and it nourishes my soul to do so. That's why I'm running for city council, not to be a politician, not to give flowery speeches, but to listen to our community and do what's best for our community. I will be an empathetic and thoughtful leader, and I will always have my door open. I want to take a couple minutes to talk about who has endorsed me. Our U.S. Congressional Representative John Garamendi has endorsed me. Our County Board Supervisor, Monica Brown, she represents us in the county. She has endorsed me. The Solano Democratic Central Committee has endorsed me and candidate Scott. The Progressive Democrats of Benicia have endorsed me. Mayor Young has endorsed me, and Vice Mayor Campbell. Those two last endorsements speak volumes. I am so humble and honored to be endorsed by all of them, and I think by working with the mayor and vice mayor, we can get some wonderful things done for Benicia. I'll reiterate my priorities. As Councilman Lagaspada said, economic development is front and center. That means diversifying our tax base, bringing different kinds of diverse businesses and jobs into our community. I am thrilled that First Street is thriving right now, but First Street doesn't bring in the taxes that we need to continue being a full service community. We're a full service community with our own fire, our own police, our own library, our own wastewater treatment plant. That takes a lot of money to maintain. So I commit to making that economic diversification a priority, along with keeping our community safe, clean air, clean water, and being your friendly neighbor at City Hall. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Innes.
Again, I want to thank you for having me here this evening. And much like Miss Birdseye, I'm not a politician at all. I'm more of a community advocate. So as a result, I'm really not spending any money on this campaign. And why would I? Even if I were to spend my life savings, I'd still be David going up against Goliath in this election. Although I have left some contact information on the back table, and you're welcome to contact me if you like. I'd welcome that. So I sit here right before you knowing I don't stand a snowball's chance in a heat wave of winning this election. But if you know you're not going to win, then you got nothing to lose from speaking your mind. And that's freedom, and that's democracy. Freedom is not having, and democracy is not having $250,000 bombarded against you. Democracy is not having a spouse go up to another candidate trying to get him to drop out of a race. That's not democracy. That's not freedom. So if my being here can help siphon a few votes away and shine a light that will help siphon some votes away from Valero Oil's chosen candidates, then I will have done this town that I love a solid. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Mr. Scott.
Thank you, like all. I appreciate the opportunity to have been part of this forum. I too am not a politician. I never thought I'd ever be in a political environment like this. I'm a futurist. I think about things 10, 20, 30 years down the road. But I hope tonight that I've answered some of your questions. I think you heard tonight there is a difference between the past and the future. And I think that you've heard that there are some different perspectives and different solutions that we are bringing to the table. I think you heard about the tried and the true strategies of some, and you heard new ideas from others. You've heard about accomplishments and other aspirations that all of us share. I think we all share this love of community, or we wouldn't be going through this process. And we know that you too share that, or you wouldn't be participating in this forum. The question that I ask, and that I ask you to focus on, is how are we going to lead this community going forward and handle the challenges of change, the things that we don't know about? In 2018, the election was not about COVID-19. And they did a good job. And I am greatly impressed by the team that put together the economic development packages, the COVID vaccine programs, etc. But if you really want to make change, you need to be accountable and understand what your actions and responsibilities are really going to be about. And I believe it's time for change in Benicia leadership. I think it's time to remember, how did we get here? And how we were forced to play catch up to get to just the basic quality of life issues that we all expect. Again, I'm running as a husband, a father, a grandfather, to bring common sense, proven methods and out-of-the-box thinking to this community. As a businessman, as a philanthropist, as a futurist, I have a unique background and a unique skill set that I'd like to bring to the community to help move it to that next generation, to be able to hand to that next group, our millennials, our Gen Xers, a city that is well thought out and handled well and managed well. In closing, I believe it's time for bold leadership. I think it's time for new leadership. And I ask for the most precious thing that you have in our democracy, and that's your vote. So November 8th, I hope you select me as your new candidate for council member for council. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, this will just take 1 second, but I get a chance to thank people. You guys got to do a lot of thinking, and so I'm going to thank you guys for coming here and spending the evening. I know that you guys are all busy, and you have much to do, not just for running for council, but other things. So I would like to thank you each very much for spending the time and taking the moment to share your perspective with everybody here at Rancho Benicia. I think we're very lucky to be able to have done this, and I hope we can do it again. I thank you all for attending. I'm blown away. I think there's more than 40 people here. I tried to count real fast without looking like I was, but I think that's about 40 or 45 people. So thank you all for coming down here on a Wednesday night. You all have one more opportunity to chat with these guys if they'll stay for a little while. There are refreshments in the back, and if you guys will stay for a little while and come to the back and chat, we'd sure like to invite you. Bourbon, and there is bourbon around the back door.
Okay, I'll share that with you.
Thank you very much, everybody.